He's like fresh out of Shadow Daddy daycare and he seems a little bit feral. He's actually 3 Shadow Daddies in a trench coat daring you to have sex with him. Cliff notes? In my fantasy novel? Quicksilver, da da da. He's a man with the fairy dick. Where's my record deal? Did you read ACOTAR but wish it was hornier? Then boy, howdy do I have the book for you. It's Quicksilver by Callie Hart. No, not that one. Put that back. Yes. That's the one. Perfect. Yes, the one with the ejaculatory tear. Quick background. So Quicksilver is Callie Hart's first fantasy novel, but she's actually written a bunch of regular romance novels that are like just now getting a trad pub run. I saw a bunch of them at Target. The universe was definitely trying to tell Callie not to write this book and she like did not listen. And that's like not a dig actually, like that just rules. Okay, so like she asked her reader group, which is like her fans, like 8,000 of her closest fans, if she should write a fantasy novel. And they were all like, no. And she was just like, I'm gonna do it anyway. Mama told me not to, I did anyway, misbehaving. 6 weeks later, she whipped out Quicksilver V1, 100,000 words. Handed that bad girl right to her agent who was like, wow, no. Cut out like 70,000 words and change the characters and then we'll talk. Google very politely calls this substantial revisions. Nevertheless, she persisted. She self-published it. No one cared. Then she sent it to the slop-hungry girls at Book Talk and bam. The hit we're reading today. The one with a 7-figure Netflix deal, and yes, I'm serious. The masses yearn for the Fae. That's what happens when you claw your movie rights back, Sarah J. So you might get the impression that this is going to be another mean review, and like, okay, yes, it is, kind of. But I didn't read this book in bad faith, okay? I just lowered my expectations. Like, these are my CW shows, okay? This is my Riverdale. When Roberto Aguirre-Sacasa like adapts a Romantasy, I will be there. I will be seated. It will be the only show I ever watch. Marlene King, I would like to hear from you too. Julie Plec, thank you. You tried, but I didn't like what you did with Vampire Academy. Anyway, the lesson here is when the universe gives you a bad sign, you tell it you can't read. But enough about that. Let's get into it. If you're new here, this is basically a I read this book so you didn't have to kind of thing. Yeah, there's going to be spoilers. There's always going to be spoilers. This is your warning. There's not going to be any others. Okay, let's start with the map. You literally cannot have a serious fantasy novel without a map. Artistically, this map is lovely, no notes. So for our purposes, we're basically only going to look at the western part of the map. Lycia and Gilaria, a name presumably inspired by Alec Baldwin's Spanish-flavored wife, basically never come up. The book begins in the city of Zilvaren, which is not on the map. It's a desert city with different wards separated by these huge walls 50 meters high. As an American, imagining a meter fills me with a sense of dread, and so already the mood is set. We meet our protagonist, Sarah Sfain, immediately after she's been caught stealing from a guard. She's 24 sexy years old, single, dark hair, blue eyes. Like many people here, she has to do crime to survive. She's from Ward 3, which is kind of the District 12 of this book. And he's like, ew, don't touch me. Because Ward 3 is supposedly plagued. Now, my understanding is that Ward 3 exists because fantasy worlds often just kind of run on the blood of the oppressed. So everybody there is starving. They live off like the meagerest of water rations. Remember, it's a desert. And that would like suck in a normal desert. But this like double sucks because their world has 2 suns. Like they do not have nighttime. Nobody can leave like legally or physically. Like there is no way out. This doesn't really make sense, but it actually like doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Just like don't think about it too hard. If you want to dwell on it on your own time. So all of the guards are wearing this like gold armor. And so then the guard like drops his gauntlet and Saris runs off with it. And as she does, it whispers to her. She sees us. She feels us. She sees us. She feels us. Super weird, obviously, but she's not crazy. She's magic. She takes the gauntlet back to Ward 3 to this guy, Elroy, who's a glassmaker, who's also kind of like her stand-in dad. He doesn't even want to touch it because he doesn't want to incur the queen's wrath. Elroy's worried that Saris will be taken if they learn about her weird metal power. So she can like make metal vibrate without touching it and make it kind of like spin and move, which like big deal, so can a strong breeze, but I guess hers is different. She can't take the gauntlet home with her because she and her brother Hayden are currently sleeping in the attic above a tavern. And she loves Hayden. He's the only brother that she has left. but like he kind of sucks. I don't really like him. Don't worry, we don't really see a whole lot of him. She goes to find him at this like tavern / gambling hall / brothel / whatever. Hayden's sitting outside. His ass has been freshly kicked by this rogue named Carrion Swift. Yes, like roadkill. I know, it's a bold name for a character. Saris gives him the bag with the gauntlet in it and she goes in to talk to Carrion. And like she hates Carrion, but like they have sex history and somehow like literally everybody knows that. Saris is like, did you kick my brother's ass? And Carrion is like, yes, girl, I did. He tried to stab me after cheating at cards. And so like Hayden deserves it. Case closed. Also, the gauntlet. He cannot and will not fence it. And actually, she should totally just get rid of it because if she doesn't, then the entire ward is going to get its ass collectively beat. And while she was in there, I guess Hayden just like opened the bag and snooped and then like ran off. And that makes sense because literally Hayden's entire job is to make her life harder. So if he sucks so bad, why does she keep him around? As a child, she watched her mom be murdered in front of her because like that's what main characters do. If you've ever watched your mom violently and publicly die, then like congratulations, you're a main character now. But I'm very sorry about your mom. So she like activates her sister senses, like her third eye is open. She's ready to find Hayden, but the guards have found him first. Obviously, they see the bag and she's like, that's not his. He was holding it for a friend and I'm that friend. And Hayden's like, no, it's mine. It's my purse. But the guards have no time for that and they surround her. Saris very intelligently ups the ante by pulling a knife on them. She holds her own super well, even though they're better trained and better armed, and she's like the starving version of SpongeBob at Sandy's Dome. She even manages to kill 2 of them, but they still arrest her and take her to the palace. So Zilvaren is ruled by Queen Maudra, who's ruled it for like 1,000 years. And she's like evil and weird. She's allegedly a human, but she's also immortal and she looks super young. We don't know why. We don't know why to any of that. So she actually set a ration on the amount of water that the lower wards can have. The third is limited to 6 ounces of water per person per day. Saris hasn't peed clear a day in her life. So to survive, she siphons water, which is super illegal. Beyond their 6 ounces, I do think they also get extra water, but it's like basically sewage with the solids filtered out. So like, ugh. Obviously, Saris has dreamed of killing Maudra since she was a medium-sized girl. Perrin, captain of Queen Maudra's guard, takes Saris to the Hall of Mirrors where Maudra's hanging out. Is it a throne room, carnival attraction, both? Nobody knows. And there is a platform in the room that calls to her somehow. Maudra demands to know how Saris got so good at kicking ass, and Saris is like, I'm a generational talent. Bad answer. Maudra thinks it's the Fae, the warmongering immortal cannibals who want her dead. But literally no one here believes in the Fae, and they haven't been seen in like 1,000 years. She sentences Saris to death and then leaves. Heron guts her like a fish, but before he can deliver the killing blow, she uses her like magic metal vibrating power to liquefy the knife he's holding. And it turns into this goo that like runs up Heron's body and like seems to like kill him. He's like, ah. It actually describes it as that, just like that in the book. I can't and won't pull up a quote of it. You just have to trust me on that one. There's also this big sword in the ground that calls to her. I don't know if that's the same thing calling to her from the platform. And she hobbles over to it like organs are like, bleh. And she sees that the ground has turned into this like pool of silvery liquid. And then this like huge guy comes out of the pool. He is canonically like 7 or 8 feet tall with black hair and green eyes, but one of them has like silver in the pupil. And he has fangs because these aren't like normal fae, they're like vampire fae. Oh, sorry, spoiler, he's a fae. We're gonna learn that in like 5 pages, so it doesn't even matter. They like used to drink blood and they like don't really do that anymore. And he puts this like necklace on her neck and then he takes her through the pool because it's actually a portal. Like he wasn't just like laying in the pool. Wouldn't that be so sick if he was just like laying there like preserved in goo for like a zillion years and then was just like, some bitch needs me. Anyways, the pool. It takes them to the kingdom of Yvelia, which is in the land of the Fae. And that is on the map. We're on the map now. We're literally in charted territory. After healing in bed for the last 10 days, Saris wakes up in the Winter Palace. She's been tended to by this Fae princess named Everlane, like the jeans. She's sweet, we like her. And Saris freaks out because she's like, whoa, the Fae are real. Because like as far as she knows, the Fae like used to exist. It's like so crazy how you just don't see somebody for 1,000 years and you forget they ever existed. Everlane says that Saris is too important for reasons that she cannot disclose at this moment in time. So Saris will not be going home. But she can take her first bath ever. So like Saris has a lot of these moments where she's just like, oh, this is my first thing I'm ever doing. And the bath is one of them. And she feels like really guilty because she's like, oh, this is like a gluttonous amount of water. She doesn't say my way's better. But what she should feel guilty about is that she has like 24 years of stonk built up on her, like rings of a tree, and she went and rubbed it all over their nice sheets. Like, you're telling me that smell is gonna wash off? Get real. They're probably out back burning the bedding as we speak. The bath isn't like the first like new fairy thing that she marvels at. Throughout the book, she's also going to experience firsts such as cold, nighttime, snow, fruit, yogurt, antimony, and timidity in the bedroom. And we're going to be with Cerys every step of the way. So Cerys is going to meet Belicon de Barra, the king of the Yvelian Fae. And he's also Everlane's daddy. Everlane has the audacity to put her in a dress, which, like, obviously Cerys fights, because, like, what female protagonist would willingly wear a dress? Oh my god, they'd rather be in prison. I'd rather have a knife. Perfume? I prefer poison. Everlane also does her hair, and then she informs her that dark hair is actually a royal trait among the Yvelian Fae, and that Cerys is a Fae name. Wow, crazy. What about that? Moving on. On the way to Belicon's beautiful court, they walk by these statues of the Fae's gods. I'm gonna put all of their names on screen, like, just in case you're curious, but the only one you really need to know is everybody's least favorite god, who is Xaereth, the god of chaos and change. Everlane presents Cerys to Belicon, and Cerys refuses to bow because he is #not her king. But it's tacky and everybody knows it. Belicon says that she can't go back to Zilvaren. One, Madra definitely acts to the third ward. The bitch queen put an end to your home and all who resided in it. You don't know that. The king's mouth twisted sourly. She declared that she would. At least that is what I was told. We know your queen, a power-hungry despot with a black and shriveled heart. Violence is her creed. If she swore to kill them, then everyone you once knew is now long dead, along with thousands more. You, on the other hand, are still alive, and as far as I'm concerned, owe the Fae of Yvelia a debt of gratitude. And then too, she literally can't go back. Also, who told him what was going on in Zilvaren? It's not like the black-haired guy was there that long. Okay, so the little, pool portal thing, there are these, magic pools of Quicksilver that the Fae used to use to travel between realms. They broke when Queen Madra used the sword Solace to seal them, and that's the sword that she grabbed when she was in Queen Madra's castle. Cerys will stay at the court until she figures out how to revive the Quicksilver and reactivate the portals. Ostensibly, she did this when she went from Zilvaren to here, and when she does, then she can go. Yes, to answer the question I know is on your mind, Quicksilver is an isekai novel for the Western woman. Anyway, her turn is up, and now they bring in the guy, the one who brought her here. He's huge, and he's dressed in black, and he has these moving, shifting tattoos on his skin. He's fresh out of Shadow Daddy daycare, and he seems a little bit feral. And him being here is the hottest goss, because people just keep dropping his nicknames. Living Curse, Bane of Gillethrye, Black Knight, Kingfisher, Kingfisher, Kingfisher. The name Kingfisher echoed throughout the hall, spoken with a mix of reverence and fear. Yes, his name is Kingfisher, like the sweet little bluebird, but he's actually Belicon's hateful little stepson. He was exiled for about 110 years, but now he's back. And because he torched an entire city, he's going to be put in a blender or suffer some other equally horrific death. But then this old oracle woman does Everlane a solid. She's like, "Oh, my third eye is open. Kingfisher will not die today. Something, the gods said so. Also, give him back his necklace. He paid a lot of money for that, and he would like it back." Damn, I'm really good at this. I should be an oracle when I get old. And anyways, obviously, Belicon wouldn't dare publicly disagree with her. And then General Renfist shows up. He's also huge and tattooed because Callie has a type. He demands that Kingfisher be allowed to return to the front lines because war is happening real bad. So Kingfisher has 1 week to help Cerys figure out the Quicksilver thing, and then he's out. Everlane, Renfist, and Kingfisher are all buddies, or they were since Everlane and Renfist hadn't seen him for 110 years. And Everlane is also Kingfisher's half-sister. And Cerys is like, "Oh, you didn't tell me you guys were at war." And Everlane's like, "It's actually an armed conflict." No, she doesn't say that. She's just like, the Fae are literally always at war. And so it just never crossed her mind. Everlane takes Cerys to the library where she meets Rosarius, the librarian. He thinks Cerys might be an alchemist, and we'll get to those later. Hence the name of the series, Fae and Alchemy, which frankly is not a very good name for a series if I'm being honest. Go all out, Callie. Call it the Sorcerer's Stone in His Pants series, trilogy, saga. I don't know. I feel like I'm giving you gold here. I'm taking your lead, I'm turning it into gold. You're welcome. I'll take a 10% of gross. Kingfisher's also been hanging around, presumably just like eavesdropping. Like, he doesn't really strike me as a book boy. I like wouldn't be surprised if he couldn't read. He says there's a decent chance that the third ward wasn't wiped out. Since the Quicksilver pathways are open again, Madra will probably be worried about the Fae invading, and she'll want to conscript whoever she can to defend Zilvaren. Also, quick lore drop, Belicon killed the old king, Rurik Dianthus, and the rest of his line to become king. But rumor has it that he still has an heir in Zilvaren. Who is that? Stay tuned. About this like Dianthus heir thing, I'm reading it back and like, I feel like there are some very obvious clues here. When I was reading this book for the first time, this whole like Dianthus heir thing, just like, I gave approximately like this many fucks about it. So I didn't really pick up on like, oh, there's this like heir thing you should care about. Anyways, the heir thing is important. I'm calling it to your attention. Kingfisher, who also goes by Fisher, and I'm going to be calling him Fisher and Kingfisher interchangeably from now on, he asks Saris if she's ever channeled Metal's energy before. And she has, duh, like that's the buzzing. And he asks if she knows her way around a forge. And like, of course she does. Like, glassmaking and blacksmithing are the same thing. Everlane and Renfis think that Saris needs to learn about Yvelia if she's going to survive here, but then Fisher drops this infamous line. Like if you've heard of this book, like you've heard of this line. Okay, all right, O'Shelleth. Lane isn't going to let this go until you've been given the cliff notes, so listen close. I'm about to furnish you with the only information you really need to know. You have the distinct pleasure of being the only living human in all of Yvelia. You are not safe here. Cliff notes? In my fantasy novel? Like, I love this actually. One, honestly, I'm a little bit pedantic. It's not Cliff Notes, it's Cliff's Notes. Two, the implication that Cliff Notes are present in this fantasy novel, like the multiverse is real and at the center of it is Cliff and he's making notes in every timeline. That's world building is what it is. Also, O'Shelleth. Fisher calls Saris that and he shortens it to Osha throughout the book. It's this type of like Yvelian butterfly that like hatches, lives, and dies all in one day. Okay, this is a fantasy novel. I know that it makes sense for characters to reference creatures that are like made up for their fantasy worlds, but when I see it, I'm always reminded of like this post. Like Callie Hart is pulling a Gregory Berry cone right now. And Saris goes with Kingfisher, the palace's forge. We learn that Quicksilver is a volatile, possibly sentient metal. Touching it makes people go insane. And people protect themselves with things called relics, which is like Kingfisher's fancy necklace or his cool ring. And one time he didn't wear it and he went into a pool and then like the Quicksilver got into him. That's the little like silver in his eye. And even though most of it is gone, he still kind of goes a little bit crazy without the necklace. And he put the relic on her so that she wouldn't die when he took her through the pool. And he couldn't have left her there because he correctly sussed out that she was an alchemist. How? Anyways, Fisher cleans up the area with his magic, which is like your classic Shadow Daddy darkness magic, a la Rhysand Akatar, a la Xaden Fourthwing. And then he just like fucks off. And honestly, like I think that's why he's so tall. He's actually 3 Shadow Daddies in a trench coat daring you to have sex with him. The next day, Saris hangs out with Everlane, eats fruit for the first time, and learns about alchemy. Oh, learns about alchemy. Did you watch my 3-part Alchemist series? Okay, this isn't like that at all. But watch it if you haven't. So, in the Quicksilververse, alchemy is this like very old kind of magic. Some alchemists tried to do the whole like immortality thing, some of them tried to cure diseases, and some of them transmuted metals and ores. Saris is obviously the metal one. Alchemists were the one to discover the Quicksilver pathways, but they didn't really bother to write down how they did it. I guess they were just like, oh, it's magic, duh. And the Fae know about Madra. She's not Fae, she's a mystery. They don't know how she's so old or how she knew to seal off the Quicksilver with solace. Speaking of olds, Everlane is 1,486 years old, and Kingfisher is 1,733. Callie set up a bit of a problematic age gap here, I will admit, but we're just gonna power through. And then she and Kingfisher hang out in the forge. They have this little convo where Saris tries to like bait Kingfisher about his dong size, and it ends with, maybe, but I'm not a man. I'm a Fae male. He paused. And maybe I'm just well endowed. Or maybe you're just wasting my time, and we should get on with whatever you're going to attempt to teach me here, I snapped. Kingfisher's hands moved to the back of his neck. It took him all of 4 seconds to unfasten his gorget and slide the silver plate free. Maybe the issue is that you asked me a question about my cock like a hungry little bitch in heat and didn't ask me something that mattered. So this book is marketed as, and I'm quoting here, a highly addictive enemies to lovers romantasy with razor sharp banter. I would describe that as aspirational. And anyway, they're not even really enemies. Like, he just kind of sucks at this point. It's just like guy who sucks to lovers. Super realistic, honestly. And this is like such a humiliating way to talk to somebody. I really do wish that this book didn't reward him with sex later, spoiler. Also, the thing about him being banished for raising a city, like, that's real. He did that. And then he forces her to touch the Quicksilver, which hurts super bad. And it sounds like a million voices saying, Anorath more, over and over. She tells it to go to sleep, and it does, because I guess like alchemy is just when you can talk to metal. And then she punches him. Later, Rusarius tells her that the Winter Palace has its own Quicksilver pool deep within the castle. Well, I'm sure nobody will do anything with that information. Moving on. Later at the forge, there's this little like white fox hanging around, and it bites Ceres, but like she's gonna keep him as a pet. Kingfisher's there because he wants her to figure out how to make relics with the Quicksilver, and then they do more banter. Their banter is such a mixed bag, okay? Because you can get the cock hungry line, ew, barf, or you can get stuff like this. Hey, I don't want to wear this, I snapped, plucking at the dress. What was I wearing when you found me? A whole lot of blood, Fisher pondered. Pants and a shirt, I said dryly. And a pair of boots with really good soles. Do you have any idea what those boots cost me? Let me guess. Your virginity. Fuck you, Fisher. Sure, he smirked. But I'm afraid I don't have any new boots to trade you for your time. Yeah, like this is rude, but like honestly, like there are lines in this book that are like genuinely funny. Like that made me laugh when I read it. Callie's very clearly getting silly with it. Do they all land? No, I feel like the two covers I showed you just take themselves so seriously. Like, I don't know, this book is just like a lot more fun than you might think looking at them. I did genuinely laugh at this, sorry. Like, I can't be a full-on hater. My heart's too full of joy. Anyway, she can't figure out how to make a relic, so she like looks at Kingfisher's necklace while he's wearing it. So like just imagine how like, oh, she's like really up in his space and it's like sexy. A lot of sexual tension ensues and they kiss with horny vigor, which is a trick. It's all a trick so that Ceres can steal the ring off of his finger. Kingfisher doesn't notice it. And while Kingfisher goes to see what Renfis is up to, Ceres just like runs off with the fox to the Quicksilver pool. But before she can go anywhere, Kingfisher arrives and draws his spooky evil sword, Nimmerel. And it's good that he stopped her because the ring he's wearing isn't actually a relic. It's just a cool ring. He got it from his favorite cereal box. They make a blood oath where Kingfisher promises to enter the pool to try to find her brother, and she promises to do whatever he wants. The Fae in this book are largely not the wordplay lawyerly types, except for times like these. You'll see. I go and I try to get your brother. You help me and assist me in any way I ask you to, and you do as you're told. You agree to this pact? I nodded. Yes. You understand that this is a blood oath? And you will be bound by this oath until death? And he enters the pool, and while Ceres is waiting for him, she decides to keep the fox and name him Onyx, and he's gonna be our little buddy on this adventure. Kingfisher returns an hour later, not with Hayden, but an unconscious Carrion Swift. Allegedly, Carrion said that he was Hayden. Kingfisher says he tracked Hayden with Ceres's blood, so does that mean that Carrion is her relative? Dunno, sure hope not. Another little bit of Fae lore. So in this book, only oath-bound Fae are unable to tell lies, and we don't really know what that means yet. So when Fisher said that he would try to get her brother, he fulfilled his end of the bargain. Ergo, he does not have to do shit. He will not be going back. And actually, they're leaving now. And she will be going because she vowed to assist him in any way that he asks and to do as she's told. And he is telling her that they are going. So, Kingfisher, Ceres, unconscious Carrion, and Onyx all saddle up, giddy up, and go. And Kingfisher has absconded with Solace because it used to be his dad's. And they go through the Wicker Wood, which is full of ghosts. And Kingfisher, who's heard the word cliff notes, has never heard the word ghosts. They're going to a literal war zone called Cahlish. Bellicon can't go there, so let's just forget about him for now. Is he out of your mind? Good. On the way, they stop by a tavern because Daddy needs a cold one. They're trying to be all like low key. Like imagine like Kingfisher is like wearing his like hood of discretion. And that like works until Renfis shows up. And then like everybody, and I do mean everybody in the tavern, suddenly realizes, oh my God, it's them. And then Kingfisher is like, let's bounce. And I thought that everybody was going to hate him here too. Like, sign me up. I have my pitchfork. But no, like these guys are actually heroes and everybody is like fangirling them like super hard. And that was like the point where it's like, as soon as we leave the Winter Palace, the book starts laundering Kingfisher's reputation, right? It's like, forget about how aggressively horny he was, dear reader. He has saved thousands, millions. Ceres, is this enough? Will you let him into your pool? So after everybody personally thanks them for their service, they leave. So it would be a multi-month journey through the Wicker Wood, and We simply do not have the pages for that. So instead, they go through a portal called a Shadow Gate, which is different from Quicksilver pools because it only goes within their world. Quick pause back to the map. You'll note that there would appear to be a straight line from the Winter Palace to Cahlish that doesn't take you through the wood at all. So what's the deal? Is Kingfisher stupid? Yes. I wish the answer was yes, but the reality is that this is a vibes-based map. And look at this, like the little pizzazz from the Yvelia labels in the way. Like they'd have to walk around that. Anyway, the portal takes them to Kingfisher's castle, Cahlish. He's the Lord of Cahlish. Like, of course he has a castle. And the Shadow Gate makes Saris nauseous, and Fisher's not very nice about it. Renfis is like, yeah, he used to be nicer before the Quicksilver. And the voices. Well, yeah, the voices tend to do that. Renfis also tells her that he and Kingfisher are brothers in every way that counts, and I do have to assume that that includes Eskimo. The next day, Saris wakes up in a beautiful bed. Carrion is out of his little coma, and he confirms that Hayden's alive, well, gainfully employed, thriving in the 7th Ward, and Madra hasn't tried to destroy anything at all. Kingfisher shows up looking, quote, extra dark and stormy, and realizes that Saris and Carrion had a sex past. He'll file that away for later. He takes her to the castle's forge. He has 15,000 rings from all of the soldiers in his army, and he expects her to forge them all into relics. Once she does that, then she and Carrion can go. And she has to do it, remember, because she made that little vow. And that's cool, but how do that? And she tries and she fails to cook up some relics, and then Renfis stops by and he's like, hey, so here's the deal. We need an alchemist. That alchemist is you. And we need Fisher to see you as a person because we don't really think he does. So we've set up a cute little dinner date for you guys, and it's tonight and you're going. They sit at exact opposite ends of the dining room table, and it's like 30 feet away from each other, which you would think would lead to some kind of like awkward shouting, but like no, he like magics his voice into her ears. And here at this giant dinner table, we learn about the war. So Bellicon doesn't send literally anything, like no food, no clothes, no weapons to help with the war effort. He's also confiscated basically all of the silver, normal silver, not Quicksilver, slow silver, if you will, which they need for reasons. Saris asks if Carrion can go back because Fisher just like sniffed out the wrong guy. But then Fisher realizes that he did sniff out Carrion. He just did it by coochie stank. And that's not a joke. Like that's canon. That's what he did. Sniffed her out like a damn dog. Then out of nowhere, the windows blow open and they're attacked by feeders, which are like these mindless zombie vampires and not the villains of my 600-pound life. They're literally rotting and maggot-ridden. Only silver kills them, and that's why they need it so bad. And to my knowledge, the silver thing is like their only werewolfian trait. They are Sanisrothian foot soldiers. Sanisroth is the Fae kingdom across the river from Yvelia. Kingfisher saves her and confines her to his bed until she heals from all of the poison. They have venom, just like the Twilight ones. He's impressed that she was able to land hits on the feeders. Impressive. This was supposed to be a compliment, but his tone made it backhanded. For a girl? I asked bitterly. He arched a dark brow. For a human. Oh, fuck you, princeling. What have you got against humans anyway? I snapped. You're so determined to hate us, but we're more alike than different. He snorted at that, rose from the chair and approached the bed. Standing next to me, he reached out a hand and curled a piece of my hair around his index finger, staring at it thoughtfully. We are nothing alike, he said quietly. You nearly died from a scratch that would have been a mild irritation to me. You were soft. You were fragile. You were vulnerable. You are a newborn fawn stumbling around in the dark, surrounded by predators with very sharp teeth. I am the thing that exists on the other side of the dark. I'm the thing that puts the fear of gods into the monsters who would eat you, bones and all. Quick aside. He claims that she was in his room because it was the most convenient. It's also full of paintings that he tore up when, quote, because sometimes my pendant can't stave off the darkness that creeps in. There's a certain amount of cheese I go for, and this is absolutely not it. Zoloft would fix him. He leaves her to heal while he goes to Irrín, the war camp on the other side of the mountains. Trying to read my script, I have a confession to make. I live in America, and in America, we don't have fancy things like diacritics or whatever the hell. So when I see words like Irrín, I don't know why that eye is wearing a hat. And then it's like Callie, who lives in Britain, an area where diacritics are friendly neighbors. She just puts them in there and she's like, oh yeah, the people will know. No, the people will not know. I know freedom, I know USA, and I know the imperial system, but I don't know diacritics. And during the next 5 days, she's magically confined to the bed. The local healer, Taylor Na, heals her. And Carrion walks in and he's like, you know, it would make him so mad. What if we had revenge sex on his bed? Because this is just one of those books where everybody's operating at a solid baseline 5 out of 10 horny. Also, Kingfisher hated how Carrion smelled like eau de minge, so he sent him away to have him thoroughly scrubbed down. Then we get another dinner scene, and this time Sarah's invited Renfis and Carrion to be her +1s. There's something about like the quantity of the men in the room that just like activates the part of them that wants to impress women with feats of strength. Like if the Marines ever brought a chin-up bar to your school to recruit, like you've seen this in action. Carrion and Renfis chat while Saris and Kingfisher have a sexually charged conversation using that like magic projection system from before. Saris is like, you're evil. And Kingfisher's like, no, it's for your own good. Daddy is a key part of the Shadow Daddy trope here. Even if Daddy is like basically having phone sex with her and like Renfis can hear it. And this is like all happening in a world where people could smell her vulve from like 10 miles away. I don't know, it's horrible. It does nothing for me. The next day, the guys take their tea right to the war zone. Irrín, and the girls are doing their little glamping thing. A frozen river called the Darn separates them from Sanisroth. And so Sanisroth is like black and charred and miserable, and Sanisroth has this like really evil looking fortress called Amontraith. She and Carrion practice fighting with Renfis, who you'll recall has been literally holding down the fort for the last 110 years. He easily knocks her on her ass. And then she looks up and sees the, and I'm quoting here, snow-pregnant sky. Snow-pregnant is such a phase, and I am kind of disappointed that summer's coming up because I was really hoping to work it into my vocabulary. Fisher takes her into his tent for dinner, and they have one of those like fight, not fight things where she's like, let me help you. And he's like, I'm too proud. And then they start kissing. His lips crash down onto mine. For a brief moment, I didn't react. I'd slipped into a daydream. This was a fantasy. It wasn't real. But the second his tongue moved past my lips, past my teeth, and I tasted him, and I felt the blast of his breath against my face, I knew better. It was real. Shockingly so. And I wanted it more than I wanted air. The blast of his breath against my face got me, like, that's seduction, babe. But when she tells him she wants him, he flies off her and he's like, I can't trust anything. And then he runs off. So she tries to find him and we get another quote. My nipples still throbbed with the ache he had put there. My pulse became a frantic tattoo as I slipped through the crowd trying to find, gods, where was I even going? I had no clue. Aching nipples, tattoo, heartbeat. This would really be something if I didn't understand what words meant. She runs into Renfis, who can smell the rejection on her crotch, and another leader, Danya. And so as you may have guessed from her like vaguely Slavic coded name, Danya is a bitch. She is a classic only girl. There can only be one girl, and that girl is her. She and Saris will butt heads for this coveted role. Oh, and just to be clear, it's the book's perspective that she's a bitch. It's Xtina's perspective that she is justified. Just saying. Danya's mad that Kingfisher abandoned them for over 100 years, which to me is valid, but like nobody else in this book seems to think so. Kingfisher is like, I'm sorry, you know, like I wish I didn't have to be gone that long, but you know, I can't say more because of fairy magic. Is that a good apology to literally anybody? And then Danya like moves to attack Kingfisher, but before she can, Saris uses her like alchemist powers to literally explode her sword. But before we can get a full reaction from her, icebreakers, icebreakers, icebreakers! The cry came from outside. Now, these are not roving bandits trying to force our heroes into playing two truths and a lie. The river has a solid sheet of ice on top and they have to break it so that the feeders can't cross it. I think it's like the feeders can't cross running water, but they can cross the ice. And so I don't really know why they can't just like keep the ice broken. I guess they don't want to. Maybe it would be too much effort. Then their leader beckons Kingfisher to come out. His name is Malcolm and he's kind of reminiscent of like the gay-coded Disney villains like Jafar and Scar. Come on, Kingfisher, the devil called in a sing-song voice. I know you're over there. It's only been a couple of weeks since we last spoke, but what can I say? I miss you. A rumble went up amongst the Fae at this. Malcolm missed Fisher? It had only been a couple of weeks since they'd spoken? The implication was clear. This Malcolm, king of the vampires, wanted everyone amongst the Fae to know that their precious leader, returned to them at long last, was in league with him in some way. Guerrilla warfare at its finest. The easiest way to win any war was to create dissent amongst your enemy's ranks so that they wasted their time and energy fighting each other instead of you. It was a smart move, but an obvious one. Still, from the looks on the faces of the warriors surrounding them, Fisher was going to have some explaining to do. "Fine. Have it your way, darling," Malcolm called. A cruel smile spread across his face, exposing a row of sharp teeth. "Hide behind your little friends. I'll be seeing you very soon." Okay, so the war is basically what you just saw back there. The feeders never make it across the ice. They drown, rinse and repeat. They never try to cross somewhere else. They never try to use a boat. I'm not positive they're allowed to use boats. I'm not really sure what their relationship is with running water. Later, Fisher and Saris hang out in his tent. Fisher isn't worried about his soldiers believing Malcolm. He says that the Fae live so long that they don't really hold grudges, which is like literally not him and Bellicon, but okay. He won't tell her what happened with Malcolm, and she realizes that he's oath-bound, which I guess means he can't talk about whatever happened to him. And then they bicker, and she accuses him of wanting to bite her. Remember how I said how like these are like kind of like vampire Fae? So the Fae used to be like vampires because of this like ancient blood curse thousands of years ago. Most of them were cured, but the fangs kind of hung around, and now they mostly use them for sex purposes. You're not really supposed to mention it, you know, like that's just kind of tacky. And then she demands that he doink her. We're on thegoodlordsyoutube.com. There's only so much I can really say about this on my channel. I'm just going to summarize, okay? I'm going to summarize with some choice quotes, some choice vibes. This is going to be a vibes-based spice scene. Okay? My breasts sprang free. Boing. He grabs her by the throat, startling the shit out of her. There's smoke, maybe from a smoke machine. My palms tingled just touching him. I can't relate to that. He's like choking her. Why? He tells her she doesn't need a shower, I believe because he likes them stinky. And then his tattoos start like moving, and they like move onto her body. That was the business, and it's over now. So the tattoos mostly went back except for one, a bird that's on her chest forever now. Oh, what's that? Oh, that's my sex tattoo. He tells her to take some magic plan B, and Saris reveals that actually she was sterilized. This whole thing comes out of nowhere, but basically Madra like sterilizes 70% of the girls in the 3rd ward just to keep the population down. But also it's like they're starving and they're living off less than a glass of water per day. To me, this like population control plan doesn't really make sense. Okay, so I'm not saying that she should kill the children. I'm just wondering why she doesn't. Anyways, Fisher doesn't like this, but he just kind of like masculinely internalizes it. Later, Saris hangs out with the Lupoprolia, Kingfisher's closest boys who he plays wolves with. They're not werewolves. I don't think there are werewolves in this book. Danya's mad because the sword that Saris shattered was a god sword. Kingfisher's sword Nimmerel is one too. Alchemists don't have power over all metal, like just Quicksilver. It's just been bound to a bunch of other weapons to make them more powerful. So it's not like she has power over all metal, just the ones with Quicksilver in it, which just happens to be like most of it. But no one's ever seen an alchemist explode metal like Saris did. She must be the most powerful of them all. Later, she gets friend drinks with Lorith, one of Kingfisher's wolves, and he drops some lore about the Fae. One, Kingfisher is an oath-bound Fae. Remember, we've been hearing that. We have not gotten an explanation. And that means that they can't lie. It's a thing that you choose to be. It is like a ceremony of some kind. Like some Fae just choose to not do it, but like that would be super dishonorable. And obviously Kingfisher would never. Lorith says that not only did Kingfisher save his life once, he gave him part of his soul. If Lorith dies first, then Kingfisher's soul will go back to him. But if Kingfisher dies first, then Kingfisher's soul will just kind of like wander about until Lorith dies. A lot of times when she's like having these conversations, like I really think that like his pack of wolf boys just exists to be his wingmen. And honestly, it's a sick move. Like it's a good strategy. Like you reel them in by being like, hey, let's play wolves. After you've gotten them to that point, you're just like, can you convince women to sleep with me? More men should do this. Anyway, Kingfisher takes Saris to this festival in a nearby town because there's always time for fun. There's a statue to his mom in the town, and everybody loves him because, again, everybody exists to gas up this off-putting man. Saris keeps hearing Anorath more, which Kingfisher does not like and will not translate for her. And he takes her to his little apartment to stay the night. They don't share a bed. And then she hears Kingfisher screaming in pain. He actually lets her take care of him. Whoa, crazy. Then Saris tells him her sad little backstory to distract him from his bullshit. So when she was 2, her dad died in a tragic sand accident, and no, I'm not kidding. Her mom became a prostitute. Elroy was in love with her, and he was kind of the dad who stepped up. Her mom smuggled in metal for Elroy to turn into weapons. Cerys helped her and boosted her thief skills. One day, Cerys' mom was caught, and the Guardians slit her throat and pissed on her dead body. And Cerys saw it. And Kingfisher's mom was killed too, even though it wasn't nearly that bad. The next morning, they have sex, avec biting, and they communicate in their minds the entire time. Of course they can do that now. And she got more sex tattoos going up her hands and arms. One of them is these like interlocking woven runes, which has a meaning that Kingfisher knows but will not share. He takes them away and says that she has a month to decide if she wants to keep them or make them go away forever, except for the bird one. The bird one stays. I don't think we get an explanation for the bird one in this book, but it like would be kind of funny if it was like the first fairy you slept with, like you got their like symbol, and so it's kind of like your like fairy virginity tattoo. Or maybe you get one for like every fairy that you sleep with, and so then it's like, you know, you see a whole zoo and it's like, ooh, know what you've been doing. I wish I knew more, but I also really don't. Anyways, if your third eye is as open as mine is, you know I'm holding my thoughts. Cerys goes back to Cahlish to try and fail at the Quicksilver. Carrion's like, why don't you just ask it to work with you? I don't really know why Carrion's still here. Like, I'm sure he'll be relevant later, but at this point, he's just kind of like her albatross of sexual regret. But she tries it, and it works. The Quicksilver will let her forge it into a sword in exchange for a song. And if the bearer is deemed worthy, the Quicksilver will make the sword magic. Cerys makes an entirely new sword in an afternoon. What the hell? Sure. Lorith accidentally cuts himself on it, and then they go outside and they see an aurora that hasn't been seen in 1,000 years. Perfect time for Lorith to sing a song about the time Kingfisher and his boys slayed a dragon. I don't really love reading songs and books. I don't really know what the music is supposed to sound like. I don't know the beat. I don't know the rhythm. So I feel like I'm just kind of like doing the equivalent of like listening politely at open mic night. The Quicksilver loves it, and since Lorith was the first person to bleed on the sword, it's his. He names it Avisiath, the unsung song. Is that how you pronounce it? I don't know. So Callie like really kindly included a pronunciation guide in this book. And so when I saw a word like Avisiath, which I was like, first of all, we've got the diacritic, I'm already frightened. I was just like, you know what? Let's just check out the pronunciation guide. And you know what the pronunciation guide told me for this? So I don't know. I hope that's right. Anyways, he calls it Avisiath, the unsung song, and it shoots up this big beam of light called Angel's Breath, and everybody is so freaking jazzed. Then Fisher steals her away for a bath. Then they sleep together, literally no sex, and Cerys tries to evict the Quicksilver trapped within him. And she says, I'm Cerys. I'm an alchemist. We know who she is, the Quicksilver hissed. She is the dawn. She is the moon. She is the sky. She is oxygen in our lungs. Ugh, like, shut up. And anyway, it says no. It's part of him now. It binds to weapons, and that's what he is. Eviction denied. Then the Horde is at the banks again, and Kingfisher wants to send her back to Cahlish, but she's too independent for that. She'll stay and fight alongside him. And then he whips out Solace, that magic sword they stole from Madra's palace. It's Cerys' sword now. And the vampires kind of like shuffle their way across the river into battle. Cerys is a beheading machine. She's doing great. And Lorith and his new blade are absolutely crushing it. And then they hear a woman scream out, Kingfisher! Everlane is on the side of the river with 100 vampires. Yeah, Everlane. Did you forget about her? Cerys did, but I didn't, and she has been bitten. This other vampire shows up, and he's kind of like Malcolm in that he isn't a demented zombie. His name is Taladeus, and he's Malcolm's, like, son. Everlane is now enthralled to Malcolm and therefore can't come home. Taladeus says that Malcolm wants Cerys and he'll do anything to get her. So Malcolm was the very first to get the Fae blood curse. Ex-Yvelian King Rurik Dianthus found a cure, but some of the Fae, like Malcolm, chose to remain vampires, and so like they're kind of different. If they bite someone enough, they become enthralled, which makes them kind of like a slave devoted to their vampire master. But then usually what happens is like the vampire gets bored of them and then it like totally drains them, and then they like die, and then they become feeders. So in 56 hours, Everlane will either die and become a thrall, or she will live on as one of Malcolm's lords. Either of those is pretty bad. And then the vampire crew just kind of leaves. Obviously a tense moment for everybody, but out of nowhere, Danya runs up to them and she is enraged that she doesn't have her sword anymore. Again, I'm gonna defend Danya here. Her friend, her leader, her wolf friend, straight up disappeared for 110 years and left them to carry on the war effort. And then he shows back up out of nowhere with this human woman who outranks her for no reason. Their greatest enemy knows him and seems to know him pretty well, honestly. And then that woman explodes the magic sword that she has been carrying for 313 years. Then the human woman remakes the sword and gives it to her friend, and now suddenly the sword has magic powers and she's not allowed to have it. And so Danya's pissed. And Cerys is like, Danya needs to learn her place. The sword she'd carried had already been silent when it had been given to her. Not even an echo of magic had remained inside it. She'd probably heard tales about what would happen to someone if they touched a god sword that didn't belong to them. But her pride was such that she really did believe the weapon hanging at Lorith's hip was hers. Danya goes for the sword, touches it, and her hand, her sword hand, straight up turns to mist. And obviously Danya deserves it because she wasn't very friendly to Cerys. She deserves to have everything she's spent the last thousands of years working toward be turned to mist. There's a chance it can be regrown. If I take you back to Cahlish and get you looked at by a healer, will you stop all of this bullshit and calm the fuck down? Fisher demanded. Danya didn't deserve her hand to be regrown. Her theatrics had reached a point where she deserved to live with the consequences of her shitty temper. That wasn't a charitable thought on my part, but I was well and truly over her attitude. She'd been a bitch ever since Kingfisher had shown up back at the camp. We had more important things to worry about than a petulant warrior who threw a temper tantrum every time she showed up in this fucking tent. Lucky for her, Fisher was more forgiving than me. And then everyone thanks Cerys for being so cool and brave. If Danya ends up going turncoat, I get it. I said that Danya was the only girl, but honestly, I really think it's Cerys. What did Danya even do to make her deserve literally any of that? Oh, she wasn't very friendly. She wasn't super welcoming to this stranger. Well, justice for Danya, honestly, because let women dislike each other. Anyway, back to Cahlish. Cerys gets the Quicksilver to make exactly one relic by telling it a secret, which is that she wants to stay in Yvelia. And when she puts on the ring, she hears Anareth more over and over and over. Then Taylor comes to heal Cerys. Carrion gives her the awooga and flirts with her, but she says she's happily married and mated. Ew. Mates is just a hate the word, hate the vibe. And she has these rune tattoos on her hands that are symbolic of her and her husband's vows. And Cerys is oh, so they don't just show up on their own during sex. And no, they don't. That used to happen when true mating bonds existed, but those died out a few thousand years ago. And Cerys is what about inscrutable words on their wrists? Is that a thing? It is. That's called a god binding. And only the most important couples in Yvelian history had them, and they always died, so womp womp. She's got to talk to Kingfisher. Did he know this? Yes. He's known that Cerys would show up for centuries, and that's why he told her about those little butterflies, the Oshellith. They have short lives, but when they hatch, they're the most beautiful things. And Oshellith means most sacred in Old Fae, so that's kind of sweet. His mom was a great oracle, and 1700 years ago, she predicted that Cerys would be Kingfisher's mate. She even drew her, but she always drew her Fae. And how funny would it be if she just drew her horribly? And she's just Kingfisher, my son, look, I got this vision of your mate. She's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. And he's Mother, yes, show her to me. And she's just Anyways, when he saw Cerys for the first time, he knew that she was his mate, so he had to save her. But he thinks that they should reject the bond, which they can do for the next 2 weeks. Then they can rescue Everlane, and she can make the relics, and then she can go back home to burn and starve in the desert. And then he's just going to that's a stupid idea, obviously. But he throws it out there. Anyway, table that, back to Everlane. They need the most powerful witch ever to break the enchantment on her. Witches haven't really come up until now, but they're real and they exist in this world, and they live all the way in the Balcador clan lands. Peep the map. Renfis and Danya go to find one. We're about 80% of the way through the book, and so I thought this might be more of a journey, maybe something that would carry us into book 2, maybe add some tension of like, will they get the witch in time? I don't know. But no, they basically immediately teleport back with one named Ishabal, who we get a pronunciation guide for like mid-book, so she'll probably be relevant later. And Lorith says he wishes he could spank her because she's so bratty, which like, ew. But I do assume that means they're going to be hooking up later. And then Kingfisher and Saris consummate their relationship one last time. And this is the part where we get the fairly famous, infamous perhaps, line. We'll go with notable quote. "Nobody will ever fuck you the way I'm about to fuck you, Saris Fane. I'm about to introduce you to all 7 gods. When you meet them, don't forget to tell them I'm the one you worship on your knees." Out fucking loud. I don't know what this book does to people. I don't know what this genre does to people. Like, I saw somebody share this quote like on Instagram.com with their legal face where their friends and families and coworkers hang out. I simply wouldn't. And I do realize that I am now sharing this with you on YouTube.com, but YouTube.com is a different me, so it's not as bad. When I do it, it's different, and I don't deserve any negative consequences, but when other people do it, it's bad, and they should feel bad. Yeah, I think that makes sense. But the next morning, he's gone, and he left a note saying he went to rescue Everlane. And the dum-dum didn't even bring his sword. He's at Gillethrye, which doesn't have a Quicksilver pool they can travel to. The gang can't get to him in time, not sure why, but they know he'll open up a shadow gate to drop off Everlane. Their plan is to go through it once that happens. I get the impression that Kingfisher is perhaps the only person who can open a shadow gate. Perhaps with his Shadow Daddy powers, he is the Shadow Daddy gatekeeper. That might have been a line I just didn't process. This book is so complicated. There were so many words I had to understand. While they wait, Saris makes Carrion a god sword, which he names Simon. He's coming with them. Everlane gets dropped through the gate, and I do mean dropped, like the gate comes through the ceiling. Saris, Carrion, Lorith, and Renfis go through the gate. And check out this poetry. "Saris, wait! The water!" But it was too late to panic. No time to ask her what she meant. The gate took hold of me, a frozen wind tearing at my clothes, tearing me inside out. I reached blindly for whatever handhold Carrion had used to pull himself up, but there was no handhold. There was a swift, disorienting shift in gravity, and suddenly I was upside down. Suddenly I was falling. They're in. They follow the sound of Anarath Mor towards an amphitheater, and we finally learn that Anarath Mor means release us. And then someone holds a knife to Lorith's throat. It's Heron, Madra's guard. Did you forget about him? I did. He's fucked up, but he's alive. And here, in Yvelia. Heron summons a portal somehow, and right before she goes through, she hears Fisher in her head tell her not to come. Daddy said don't, but I said I'm gonna misbehaving. It drops them off inside the amphitheater, and Fisher is there, beat up, but still sexy. And sitting at a dais is not only Malcolm, but Belicon and Madra. They call each other sister and brother in a way that I'm sure is a total perversion of the family unit. Carrion tries to introduce himself, and he gets the smackdown. The climax is not the time for jokes. So, everyone knew that Madra closed the Quicksilver. They were mad, but they got over it. Also, Belicon was not helpful with the war on purpose. He was trying to get people killed so that Malcolm could have an army. And Saris realizes that the crowd is full of melting, burned alive people who haven't yet been allowed to die. These are the Fae of Gillethrye, the city Kingfisher raised. Kingfisher was bound by an oath and he couldn't talk about the real details, but now that Belicon released him, he's ready to chat. So, the vampires attacked Gillethrye. Fisher and the Awu crew held them off. He went to find and kill Malcolm, but instead he found Belicon, and that's when he learned that they were buddies. Also, Belicon killed his mom, and he's not sorry about it. And he gave Everlane to Malcolm on purpose so that she could be a trap. Belicon offered Kingfisher a deal. He would flip a coin, and if it hit the ground and landed leaf side up, then Malcolm would leave. But if it hit the ground and landed fish side up, Fisher would leave everyone to die. He wasn't allowed to touch the coin, and while the toss was being decided, he couldn't hurt Malcolm or Belicon. Until they figured out what way the coin fell, he couldn't talk about the deal. And that does seem like a lot of preamble for a coin toss, right? And like, yes, the fine print of this deal is annoying, but unfortunately it is relevant. Because when Belicon tossed the coin, Malcolm caught it. It never hit the ground, and therefore the coin toss was never decided. And so since the coin toss wasn't decided, he couldn't hurt Belicon or Malcolm. And he couldn't talk about it either. So then, you know, rock in a hard place, Fisher barricaded the entire city and burned them alive to prevent them from turning into and defeaters. And I guess while he was doing that, Malcolm got crafty. He made a labyrinth and he like hid Belicon's coin in the center of it. And he built the whole Colosseum around it with all of the souls to taunt him for the next 110 years. Madra's also there this whole time. She doesn't have a whole lot to add, but she's standing there and her nipples are protruding menacingly. And Fisher vows to kill her for, quote, spaying his mate. But she's pretty much irrelevant, so we're going back to the reveal. It took Fisher 102 years to reach the center of the labyrinth and another 8 to find the coin. And this whole time, Malcolm is just like calling him like my love, because I guess the only thing eviler than being evil is being gay and evil. Anyway, the Quicksilver pool was under the center of the labyrinth. So when it opened, it like broke open a hole, and then Fisher was just gonna like, woo, and bada bing, bada boom, that's the book. That's how we got here. Full circle. Fisher grabs Solace from Cerys's hip and guts Belicon with it. That one's for mommy and daddy. All hell breaks loose and the gang runs to the labyrinth, killing Heron on the way. Luckily, Fisher knows the deal this time. The first obstacle is this kind of like human spider hybrid. They defeat it and Cerys uses her Quicksilver seeking skills to find the center of the labyrinth. And I realize now that we should note this. They kill the spider, they're in the room with the spider. She uses her Quicksilver skills to take her to the Quicksilver, which is in a different room. If we could log that for the record, please. Anyway, so they get to the center of the labyrinth. It is full of coins, and Kingfisher had to find the exact coin that Malcolm used in the bet. I don't know why they didn't just kill him. I feel like at some point it just would have been easier for them to just kill him. Malcolm, Madra, and Belicon, who's just fine now, show up, and they say that to kill one of them, you must kill all of them. Kingfisher mind reads to Cerys that the room is full of fake coins, because the original coin was silver and it burned Malcolm's hand when he touched it. And he's touching these, no problem. The original probably also had Quicksilver in it, because of course it did. Cerys does a quick scan and she realizes none of these coins have Quicksilver. Meanwhile, Carrion talks shit and invites Malcolm to bite him. He does, but after a few gulps, he pulls back. You, he said. Carrion was deathly pale, but he grinned up at Malcolm like a lunatic. You really should have let me finish introducing myself earlier. It's rude to interrupt people. Malcolm let go of him, shoving him away. Miraculously, Carrion managed to stay on his feet. My name is Carrion Swift, but there was a time when I was known as Carrion Dianthus, firstborn son to Rurik and Yvelia Dianthus. Dianthus, we've been hearing that name. Rurik Dianthus was the king before Belicon, and Dianthus blood is the only thing that can kill Malcolm. And I will give her credit, because looking back at these clues, it did kind of feel like Callie was like pushing us towards like, is Cerys a secret princess? And she's not. So good for her. I was genuinely surprised by this, but we'll get to it later because I have more thoughts. And then Cerys runs off and she's tracking the Quicksilver to find the real coin. And she and the Quicksilver chat. And she's like, I have to help my mate. And then suddenly, like, the tattoos are back. She is tattoo official because the mating bond is back on the table. And the Quicksilver says that it'll help her in exchange for a favor. She accepts and she's guided back to the Spider-Man monster thing. The coin was in its throat and she takes it. And okay, but like she was close to the Spider-Man monster when they were like, okay, go, you know, sniff out the Quicksilver, woof woof. Why didn't she sense it then? Like, is it like she can only sense things like in front of her? I feel like that could have been addressed. I think the way that it works is she can only sense in a direction that the plot needs her to go. I feel like that works. That makes sense, right? Let's go with that. But then Malcolm shows off and his skin is like melting off of him. He's not surprised that Madra didn't find her because it's hard to detect magic in half-blood fae, which I guess Cerys is. Like, maybe her fae name was genetic. Gets the coin from her and like puts it in a little pouch. He's jealous that Fisher fed on Cerys. He had told Fisher that he'd let him go if Fisher had fed from him like just once. But Fisher wouldn't. He's on the straight and narrow, wink wink. I know everybody's trying to like convince me that like Fisher is very great in this book. I don't really want to believe it. I still see the dude who like sucks a little bit. I wish everybody didn't want to fuck him. Like, can you imagine? It's like he goes from this guy who's just making these like inappropriate comments to like actually he's the greatest war hero and the kindest guy and the most honorable and also just profoundly heterosexual. It's like everybody wants to fuck him, but he's saving himself for his mate. Like, I don't know. I hate the vibes. Anyways, Cerys stabs Malcolm in the throat, but he still doesn't die. He wounds her in the tummy and he leaves her just like in Madra's palace. But when he checks the pouch, it's empty. Did you forget you were dealing with a pickpocket? Your pocket has been picked. The little coin hummed happily in my hand as I held it up for him to see. What was Belicon's deal again? Leaves or fishes? Don't! Malcolm cried. Don't! I flipped the coin, not high. I wouldn't give him the chance to grab it out of the air the way he'd done when Belicon had flipped it. The little coin flashed brilliantly as it spun. It didn't matter which side it landed on anymore, only that it landed. The ground shook when the shining silver struck the obsidian. There was a moment of stillness. and the ruins of Gillethrye held its breath. Stupid little bitch! What have you done? And like the soul from a Skyrim dragon, there's a huge gust of wind and the charred body's souls leave them. And then she beheads Malcolm. Fisher and Taladeus, remember him from the river, show up. She's dying, Forrest. Fisher can't give her a piece of his soul or he'll die. Instead, Taladeus offers to turn her into a vampire, and Fisher consents on her behalf. Sarah starts to turn and she hears a voice. The voice came again, clear and concise. You stand before a door. Your hand is poised to knock. Are you ready to walk through it? Will you leave this place and see what lies beyond in the next? Whatever the cost would be for staying with him, I would pay it. Yes, I said. As you wish. Then we call in our favor, Sarasphane. Will you honor your word and grant us our favor? Of course it was the Quicksilver. And of course it was calling in my debt now, when I was a hair's breadth from death. What is it you want from me? The answer came immediately. We require an audience with you, Sarasphane. And then she gets magically pulled like whoosh into the Quicksilver pool. And then she's in heaven, kind of. She's where the Fae gods hang out, including these two teen sister goddesses who are also jealous that she's slept with Kingfisher. And no, that isn't a joke. Zareth, god of chaos, is there. Kingfisher is Zareth's champion. There's a big tree which represents everybody's fates, and it's sitting in a pool of Quicksilver. I assume Cliff and his notes are at the very heart of this tree. Some of the branches are rotting, and rotten realms have to be destroyed. He has wiped out billions of people. Long ago, he consulted the fates, whatever that means, and saw a strong bond between her and Kingfisher. She was supposed to be born Fae in Yvelia, but he stuck her in Zilvaren and made her born human. But even he couldn't keep them apart. That's why Fisher's mom imagined her as Fae. She was probably right when she predicted that. He separated them because when they're together, most of the tree dies. He points out the script writing on her wrist, the god binding, and says that it marks her and Fisher as wards of Zareth and protects them from other gods. If Zareth accepts Kingfisher as her mate, he will cut her thread from the tapestry of the universe. Zareth won't be able to see her, and neither will the other gods, whatever that means. She accepts. Taladeus is there when she wakes up. She's a vampire now. And Fae. Half vampire, half Fae. All alchemist. This has never happened before. Carrion is there, and he looks Fae now. He's known he was Fae the entire time. Fisher's dad sent Carrion to Zilvaren 1,000 years ago, glamored his Fae traits away, and then Carrion just sort of vibed. When Fisher found him, he really did lie and say that he was Hayden to protect him. I did not expect the Carrion reveal, to be honest, but I didn't really like how luck-based it was, because it was like if he had never slept with Saris, or if Kingfisher hadn't sniffed him out, or he had found Hayden first, maybe he never would have been found at all. So basically the entire reason our team pulled out a dub is because Saris randomly slept with him a few months ago. That's just not really enough for me. There are some other resolutions. Everlene is going to live, but right now she's taking a big nap. Madra and Belicon fled, location TBD. Fisher's there, and there's less Quicksilver in his eyes. That's nice for him, thanks to Telena and Ishabal. And zoom out. Where are they? They're in Amontreath, the palace of Sanisroth. And because Saris killed Malcolm, she's going to become the Sanisrothian queen, like tomorrow. End book. Wow, that was something. Like, was it an unhinged horny mess? I mean, yeah, but like, I do say that with some degree of affection. It's a romp. Is it amazing? No. But it's genuinely funny sometimes, I'll give it that. The spice is thorough, isn't that an endorsement? The thing about this book is, like, if you've read other Romantasy novels, you've read this book. It's basically all the heavy hitters stuck in a blender. And like, that's not a bad thing, okay? Like, that's a neutral thing, actually. Some people genuinely do want to read the same thing over and over, right? Romance at its core is kind of a formulaic genre. Again, that's a neutral thing, okay? It's like cookies, right? Like, if you want a chocolate chip cookie, it's basically gonna follow the same recipe as other chocolate chip cookies, like, you know, give or take, right? And chocolate chip cookies are good. Like, the formula is only bad if you don't like it. And obviously ACOTAR is the biggest fish in the Romantasy pond, and like, I felt its ripples the most here. A lot of this felt like a speed run of ACOTAR and Akamath, but like wackier and hornier. Are there weird language issues? Yeah, like Fisher doesn't just say cliff notes, he also says like training mode and spawned, even though, again, he doesn't know Ghost. Does the plot always make sense? Like, no, not really. Like, if you're a huge plot girly, this is probably not the book for you. Does this book take itself super seriously? No. And like, if you come in expecting something more thought out or like serious business fantasy, like, you're probably going to end up disappointed. If you didn't read Quicksilver, like, maybe you should. I mean, like, where else are you going to get a love story between an ancient fae with shadow powers and a human who was taken to the Fae lands against her will and becomes not only Fae, but their queen. And both of them wear black and have tattoos that represent their mating bond, and also they can talk to each other in their minds. I don't know. This is probably the only one. And if you did read Quicksilver, what did you think? Let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video if you liked the video, and subscribe if you want to be here for the next videos. Bye!